I've probably been involved mainly as a responder. I'm a child of the mid-'80s, so saw fairly average, but somewhat dry conditions during that time. But I've always been involved in fire in the landscape. I think I was too young to be in the active members in fire brigade, so was helping the ladies auxiliary feed those that were going out to fight those fires or emergencies. And then as I got older, I became a firefighter. And then post my university, I've been firefighting in public land for 20 years with the government agencies for that. So, which was also responding to flood and fire. As time passes, probably the reflection I have on that is that it's the impact that they have on the people from your community, and some more heavily than others. Being part of that, supporting people and community through their greatest time of need, the biggest challenge, but the experience is what's in my control and what can I do in those instances, and revert to what you're good at in responding and helping people in need during those events. Whether it's bound to happen, whether it's fire, flood, drought, windstorms like we experienced the other week that turned the skies turned the skies red, something we hadn't seen. So I think it's how we respond or react to it, how we can pivot and take action on things that are in our control is the important part there. One of the things that we're doing in Parks Victoria, we've adapted the RAD framework. It's commonly used framework in conservation and that climate adaptation, where we talk about resist, accept, or direct. It's used to give us strategies for managing those natural and cultural resources, especially in response to climate-driven and ecological extreme weather events. So the resist model, the goal is to maintain or restore that historical condition of where it was at. So it might use fire suppression under those big ones, or removing some of those invasive species, or building a bit more resilience into some of that infrastructure to resist some of that damage that comes in there. So the accept is around allowing ecological change with minimal human. So that's the stuff that we're just letting happen. We might let a wetland migrate inland, if it was around a sea area. For up here, we might allow fire adapted ecosystems to regenerate naturally, rather than trying to put stuff that was there one stage, but is no longer viable, to try and get regenerating in there. The third part is we're trying to direct or steer the direction of change towards the desired outcome. So we might be able to fully resist it, but we can sort of navigate its way into what we can look after. So we might replant with those climate resilient plants rather than the whole species list. We might redesign park infrastructure so it can handle being overtopped by floods, or we might actively manage animal populations so that it can naturally regenerate. I think getting out in nature is an important part, because value what we do have. But when we're out there, a healthy respect for the rangers trying to look after it. We used to go camping and have campfires, but we already talked about it. It's more drier, it's more crunchier underfoot. And so, do those activities that you're allowed to do in country, along the river or out in the bush, but making sure we put things out so we don't have that bigger impact on community and stuff by letting fires escape, or leaving rubbish there for someone else to pick up, leaving it in its naturalist form and enjoying it, because it has huge health benefits. Clean Up Australia Day, bushwalking, going out bird watching, being out there, sitting there, reading a book in nature, all adds stuff to a very technologically heavy society we live in now. Put the tech away and get out there, or use the tech to get involved in the environment rather than ignoring the environment that you're in. It comes back to First Nations knowledge in conservation reflects over 65,000 years of deep place-based understanding of country, and the European knowledge, it's documented for a couple of 100 years in that space. So if we ignore that, then we're doing injustice to country to keep it healthy. That long stewardship on the land and waters through practice that are inherently sustainable, adaptive, and resilient. And so in the face of climate change and extreme weather, it offers some pretty valuable insights. So when you think of the indigenous seasons, talk to moon phases and when animals are breeding and doing those sorts of things, it's not necessarily a set calendar date. It's about when we're starting to see these observations in landscape, that means that we've transitioned to the next season. And so I think there's a lot to be learned in that to go, oh, that season's a lot later this year and we need to adapt for the other ones, and don't just think it's going to be the natural succession of those seasons in the same set timeframes. I think that's, if we change our mindset from the environment where you control and take stuff from it to respect and understanding across it, I think will go a long way. I'm passionate, as people in Parks Victoria are passionate about doing the best we can to look after the future for people to enjoy, families to enjoy, communities to take ownership of and enjoy this exciting times to come ahead, whilst considering those threats and pressures that we have on us. But I just urge people not to put a lens on that it's all bad. There was some good news stories that come out of floods. If we get tied up in the stuff that directly affects communities and infrastructure and that, which is quite warranted, but we forget how good that is for the landscape. And we often forget to put that lens on it, the regeneration, the recharging of systems, that sending nutrients back down and seeing black box that haven't seen water for 50 years, for instance, shoot new leaves and you thought they were dead. So they're still there. Those are the good news stories, in that we need some of this big weather and that country appreciates some of this big weather. It's about how we can respond and pivot and protect ourselves in that environment rather than try and change the environment that we have. In reality, we have very little control over.